Hello, everyone, and welcome to another ST Times Live micro webinar, in which today we'll be talking about improving software testing and quality with generative AI, which, of course, is all the rage these days. Today, we're going to be chatting with Grigori Trofimov. He's a senior solutions architect at test company Parasoft, which is announcing the upcoming release of its industry-leading API testing solution, SOAtest. So we'll be looking out for that announcement. Thanks for being with us here today, Grigori. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me, David.
Yeah, well, thanks for being here. Appreciate it. So let's start with the current state of AI in software testing. Where are things at today?
That's it's a great question. As we're as we're tracking it, things are pretty dynamic in the world of AI. I think if we look back, a few years, we'll see that things have changed dramatically. We went from some very traditional algorithms that we considered AI, whether predictive or analytic algorithms, and we've migrated into this world of generative AI, Chat GPT, Open AI APIs, and prompting, and really having a conversation with AI in order to get the things that we need, and that's impacted testing and test automation in a significant way as well. Because uh, you know when when you think about previously identifying software that had AI capabilities, you didn't really have to think so much about training LLMs and your data being used for training LLMs and sending information out, code snippets and things like that. Whereas now, that's become the forefront. And actually, if you even look at what some of these AI companies are doing, they're introducing enterprise specific, enterprise friendly models that will guarantee that your data is safe, that it's not being used for additional training. And this is all very, very recent, right? So, we're keeping eye out on that, to try to understand how a lot of these organizations are going to be adopting these things, whether they're going to be leveraging, OpenAI or Azure AI platform, or they're going to be building their own LLMs. But today, as we see it, AI is become a key assistant in really anything that we do, whether we're writing documents, whether we're writing test cases, whether we're creating test cases and test scripts. Typically, we'll see some form of AI assistant embedded into a solution in order to speed things up and reduce manual work associated with implementing testing.
Mhm. So let me ask you then. So, what are the benefits and the drawbacks of using generative AI in automated testing?
So with generative AI, the flow there kind of manifests itself as a little bit different, right? So what does it do, right? It takes a prompt and it reaches into this, giant lake of data that it trained on, this, vast vast internet space that it basically crawled to some extent and consumed data as text. So the main benefit of that is, of course, the ability to extract very fine-tuned and very accurate context from your request. So if you, for example, ask generative AI to generate a unit test, it will be able to extract the context of the code, come up with good values for a unit test. On the other hand, because of the generative nature of these responses, your your answers might be different every single time you ask the question. So for the same test method, or for the same acceptance criteria, you might get vastly different responses. Additionally, the things that we've talked about, which is you don't own these LLMs at the moment. These it's something that you get an API token for. You communicate with an API, and then it returns a response. So there's always data privacy concerns with regards to that. But what we're finding is that for an organization that's been in this field, that's been doing research in AI capabilities for the last few years, there's some convention that they can integrate with the new approach, with the generative AI approach, right? So combining what we've been doing in the past with what's been introduced in the last year and a half or so has really yielded the best results and allowed us to overcome the drawbacks
Mhm.
associated with specifically with generative AI capabilities.
Right. So, what are some of the use cases of generative AI? When it comes to software quality.
Well, that's it's $1 million question, but it's also the probably has the most answers. You can leverage generative AI capabilities for just about anything. I think in the testing space. Obviously, test creation has been one of the primary targets for a lot of organizations. It's something that we're looking at specifically as well. But again, to sort of just dip back a little bit into some of the capabilities that we've been introducing, even prior to generative AI. If you look at the test automation pyramid, for example, right, you have static analysis and unit testing, right? So those types of low scope tests. Well, for static analysis, you can do predictive analytics to determine whether or not a static analysis violation needs to be suppressed or a static analysis violation needs to be fixed, whether there is a potential fix that we can generate based on the context of the code and help from generative AI or flow analysis that we've already executed. On the unit testing side, many organizations are struggling with code coverage and achieving an acceptable level of code coverage or maintaining a level of code coverage when there's to their code. So generative AI has been a good um, a good assistant again, in that sense to deliver new unit tests or bulk unit tests, right? Being able to generate things in mass. Um, on the functional testing side, we see a lot of use cases related to data generation and real-time analysis of test executions. So for data generation, again, extracting context from an application, whether it's code, whether it's a definition file, whether it's something else. Um, you know, Generative AI is typically good at saying, okay, this is a first name, this is a last name, these are some valid values that you can use here. Um, with real-time test execution analysis, we see things like self-healing, very common across the industry, being able to heal tests on the fly to basically avoid tests failing due to test defects, not application defects, and enhancing release velocity in that regard.
So, let me ask you in the last couple of minutes that we have. So, what's in store for SOAtest when we're talking about generative AI? What can we look forward to in the release?
So we're very excited about this release and then our coming releases. We're certainly looking into this technology and implementing it in a way that optimals for existing users, but also introduces maybe some new capabilities and new flows that users can leverage for test automation. What we're introducing is a generative AI test scenario generation capability. So based on documentation like a definition file like Swagger or Open API, uh, our solution is able to identify and produce realistic user use cases essentially, right? So the ability to basically take an API and structure API calls in a way that reflect an end-to-end test. So if I'm testing a banking application, for example, and I have a service that returns account information, validates my login, deposits, withdrawals, things like that. And I want it to generate realistic user scenarios. What it'll be able to do is it'll be able to look at that definition file and produce 4, 5, 10, however many scenarios I need to validate a specific user flow, like deposit money into an account, do edge cases, right? If I want to validate some specific condition um, that otherwise I would have to sort of stitch together with API calls manually. And all of this is controlled by a prompt. So if you want to further enhance that capability, or if you want to push specific scenarios, acceptance criterias, features into a prompt and have it generate test scenarios based on those, based on that human, written language, it can do that for you and speed things up when it comes down to test automation and test coverage.
Hmm. That's fantastic. All right, Grigori Trofimov, the Senior Solutions Architect at Parasoft. Thanks so much for being with us here today.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. And of course, to all our listeners, thanks again for watching. Until next time, I'm Dave Rubenstein, Editor-in-Chief of SD Times. So long for now. Oh, and by the way, here's a demo that you can download. Just take a picture of the QR code and get to play around with Parasoft SOAtest with generative AI.